troubleshoot?
It records. It records.
Oh, it does? Okay. Okay, we're good to go. You're tuned into Gated Vibes. We are here with Reverend Norb, punk rock legend. He has been around since I think the 80s, right, Norb? You've been
You
doing
mean
punk
on the
rock
planet?
things. Yeah, you've been doing punk rock things, being a punk rock guy, doing punk rock stuff since like the late 80s, right?
I bought my first punk rock album in July 23rd, 1979, and it has been, I don't know, a steady stream of nonsense ever since.
Very cool. It's good to have you on the show. Thanks for tuning in. For people who don't know, Norb, he's been in a lot of bands. Reverend Norb and the Onions is one of them. He's been in. How many bands have you been in, Norb?
I'm not sure, but I can enunciate them if I have to. The first band I was in was in Suburban Mutilation. We played our first show in 1981. We were called the Rat Eaters at the time. My second band of all time was Depo Provera, not counting the time I played drums for a band called ABM, who worked contemporaneously with the end of Suburban Mutilation. Depo Provera, that was the last half of the 1980s. Then I was in Boris the Sprinkler for the 90s. Then I was in nothing. No, I was in Nob Dylan and the Knobsleets. That's a punk rock Bob Dylan cover band. That happened for 3 shows only in the mid-2000s. And then I was in Reverend Norb and the Onions. That was in the 2010s. And now I'm in Smart Shoppers, and that's about it.
Yeah, I heard about, a friend was telling me about the cover band that you were in, the Bob Dylan punk rock cover band. Tim Schweiger was in that band, right?
That's correct. It was Tim Schweiger, Justin Perkins, and John Phillip, the Obsoletes. So we were the Knobsleets.
The Knobsleets.
That was Nob Dylan.
Very cool. I haven't gotten a chance to check that out yet, but my friend was telling me about that yesterday. I told him that I was going to interview you, and he was telling me about the Bob Dylan punk rock cover band, the Knobsleets. That's a very interesting idea. I look forward to checking that out. So how have things been for you during quarantine? How have you been keeping yourself busy?
I'm rather enjoying it. I've decided that I don't really need contact with my fellow man, that doing things is a real pain. And as long as nobody else is doing anything, I don't feel bad about doing nothing. So I'm working from home and I'm taking walks around my block, and that's about it. And I'm getting really nothing done except listening to old records that I haven't listened to before, and trying to chop my way through stacks of comic books that have been piled up next to me for ages.
Yeah, there you go. You're an avid collector of a lot of things. What do you all collect?
I'm an accumulator. I'm an accumulator of stuff. Well, naturally, as a punk rock guy, I have a sizable record collection, although I don't know if it's literally as big as a whale as I claimed in one song. Comic books, I've been a big comic book dude since I've been 4 years old, so that's given me like half a century to accumulate many comic books. I have all the Marvel superhero stuff from November 1961, that's Fantastic Four #1, the beginning of the Marvel era, to November 1971, which is the last month before they raised the cover price to 20 cents. So I have that entire 10-year span of all the Marvel superhero stuff, all Fantastic Four, Avengers, Spider-Man, X-Men, whatever they put out, I own it all and I've read it all because that was important to me. And I sort of collect sports cards in a way, just the old ones. I only collect the ones that I think look cool. What the heck else do I collect? If there's things in this world that can be collected, I have probably at one point in time or another collected them.
So you collect cards. Do you collect? I heard you collect hockey cards, which is not very common. Is that true?
It isn't. I collected the 1959 Topps set of hockey cards. I have all those but 2. I got the 1958-59. I have the entire set of the 1960-61s, and I have the 1971-1972s, I think. And those are my hockey sets that I work on. I don't just like collect all. If there's like a particular set of a particular card in a particular sport that I think has cool graphics and I want to own it, then I collect those.
Okay, that's cool. What makes you attracted to collecting things?
I don't know. I think I have a mental defect of some sort.
I think it's something that, because I'm a little bit younger than you, and I think it's something that we sort of miss out on in our generation is we're used to, in the digital age, it's like everything is just online and accessible online, and I feel like we kind of missed out on like that whole era where you had to have things in order for them to be in your life. Like if you wanted to listen to music, you had to have a record collection or at least a radio, and now it's not as much like that. And I think it's almost, in a way, for me, it's almost like I'm kind of disappointed that we missed out on that, because it seems like it's a lot of fun.
I mean, it's definitely a generational thing. I think I must be the last generation or whatever of thing havers. Like if you wanted to learn about music, you had to read music magazines and you had to go down to the store and look at record covers and be obsessed about the details and see if you could buy a music magazine that had a review of the record in it, or maybe you could call a college radio station if they had those where you lived and see if you could get somebody to play a song because you didn't know what the heck it was all about. And you had to sort of go through this entire process. And it sort of became your life, like trying to figure out what bands were cool, what records are cool, and where can I get them and what do they sound like. And now you can just, plug some numbers in on YouTube or some letters rather, and there you go. So I think time sort of passed us by at this point in time because we're still down at the record store looking at covers of things and trying to figure out stuff that we want to buy. And meanwhile, you young whippersnappers are just clicking on your keyboard and you have this gigantic encyclopedia of musical knowledge right there in front of you, and whatever, it's cool.
What do you think we've gained in the digital age by being able to like stream music, and it's so much easier for bands to put out a record than it used to be? So there are ups and there are positives. From your standpoint, what do you think are the positives and the negatives of?
Well, the positive is you certainly have less barrier to entry if you just have to stream something and put it online. Of course, it's kind of like you're one in a zillion people, and there's since it's harder and more of a process to put on a record, if you actually do something, you have a physical product that's tangible in your hands, then that's a little bit more distinctive than just putting something up. You're not as diluted. Your product isn't as diluted if you were putting out a physical product than if you were just putting something online. So, I mean, you gain barrier to entry, you gain ease, you can sort of get yourself a little bit more fulfilled without having to do something completely pointless like paying for somebody to stamp records in a groove on a piece of plastic and put it in a plastic bag and all this weird crap and worry about getting it to stores. You also gain, I think you gain portability and you gain sort of mobility because your life is not bogged down by, you don't have a stack of comic books sitting in every corner of your house. You don't have, records piled up everywhere. You could probably stuff all your stuff in a backpack and just go somewhere and move to Timbuktu if you really feel the urge. Whereas I would have to, what would I do with my stuff if I moved to Timbuktu? I would have to arrange to have it stored or shipped with me if I could not bear being separated from my stuff.
Yeah, that is true. I think that is something that we've downsized a lot. And it is, I don't have that much stuff. It is true. But I do also think it's really cool that the physical aspect of things in that age, like, I guess sometimes I almost wish that I grew up back then because it would be nice to have things be that way. With the ease of, I feel like for me, even as somebody who comes from this generation, sometimes do wonder if we lost more than we gained. But I mean, it's arguable either way whether or not things are better or worse. Do you think they're better or worse?
I think it's kind of it is what it is kind of thing.
Yeah, that would make sense. I think so. So
I mean, things tend to improve, but you lose things in the translation. Like, I don't know. I work in printing, so if I buy a record by a band, I'm always looking at the cover and I'm trying to figure out how they printed it and things about the graphics and stuff like that. And I think if you're online, you don't quite get that, but I don't know. There's trade-offs.
I do remember, like, because when I was younger, I didn't have the internet and stuff like that, and I do remember like going to record stores and just looking at records and being like, oh, this just looks cool. I'm gonna buy this because it looks like it could be cool. And you come home and you get it, and sometimes it actually is really cool. And there's like this special feeling you get from discovering an album in a store as compared to just discovering it online and being able to check out the whole discography of the band right away. It's like, who are these guys? Well, where did they start? Where are they from? You have all these questions, and now it's just like you can just look it up on Wikipedia and instantly answer it. I think it's cool, but I don't know. It's just, and it is harder to get people to care about something when everybody else is just putting out an album online. Like, it happens every other day. Someone's putting something out. So, and through the social media, most people are like on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff while they're taking a shit, and they're not really gonna like listen to your album like while they're taking a shit. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it might have been more. There's more widespread reach now, which is nice. That's cool. But I feel like the reach before was more genuine. But let's switch to a different subject now, and go back to talking about punk rock. You've played with a lot of bands over the years. You probably couldn't even count the number of bands that you played with if you tried to, I'm sure. What are some maybe, like, I guess to narrow it down, what are like the top 5 favorite bands that you've played with over the years.
Top 5 favorite bands, like in, gosh.
Maybe more.
that's
Maybe
interesting.
more if you don't want to narrow it down that much, more or less, depending on what you want.
Like, how are we defining favorite? Like, oh, these guys are my buddies. I like to hang with them. I want to pinch their cheeks. They're so cute. Or, oh, I've loved this band's music forever. Or, oh, here's an impressive name I can pull out of, I don't understand the criteria. I'm all confused and I'm all jiggered.
Just it doesn't have to deal with the bands that are like big. In fact, it'd be nicer to hear about bands that maybe people didn't hear about. I guess just bands where you're like, you saw them live and you played with them and you're like, man, that was really cool to play with that band.
Well, the guys in Descendants and all at my old band, Depo Provera, used to play with those guys, and we became good friends, and they would come over to my house and they would stay there, and we would usually have, big parties, and girls would be over and be whooping it up. And I must say that was a lot of fun back in the day. Those guys, we always looked forward to it. Like Tom Smith used to say, because he was my roommate, it's like having your cousins in town. Because, you get together and you get to see them maybe once a year or twice a year. And you don't exchange presents or anything like that or play with Evel Knievel. But besides that, it's pretty fun. So that was cool.
Yeah, that is cool. That's a nice thing about touring bands is when they come to visit and just the rapport, is that how you say that you form with them? That is pretty cool. And that's cool that you had that experience with the Descendants. That's a pretty neat story. Is it true? Is it true that the song "Punk Rock Guy" by No Effects is about you?
It's absolutely not true. It's absolutely not true. It just some guy out of Green Bay, Wisconsin, rhymed with Charles Bronson or whatever. And I assure you, I don't have green teeth or whatever that is. But this question's been asked before. It is absolutely not about me in any way, shape, or form.
I thought you didn't seem like the kind of guy that would like bang people's moms and stuff. So the lyrics took me aback.
You don't know me very well, do you?
Yeah, I guess you're right. Maybe that's yeah. That's a good response to that. Yeah, I thought for sure that song was about you, but I guess yeah, it's not.
Isn't there something about green teeth? I don't have green teeth. However, I am straight and I am out of Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Well, maybe the green teeth has to do with like, drinking green beer or something. I have no idea. Maybe they're trying to be poetic or something. I'm not sure. But
I do not believe it is about me, no.
Okay, well, I just thought I'd bring it up because I wondered myself, and there are many people who believe that, and I guess that's part of being a punk.
It is not the case. It is not the case.
That's the bear you burden being a punk rock legend is people make up stories about you. So
or being from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
We all have crosses to bear.
Yeah. So how has the record store, you talked about hanging out at the record store and about how you kind of had to living in a time where you had to like search out different bands that you liked, and it was kind of a little bit more of a process. How did hanging out at the record store and that kind of thing shape punk and just like the scene in general and like live music during the 80s and the 90s and stuff like that? Like obviously it was like more of a social hub, right? Were things a lot different when the way that you got people to know about your band playing was like putting up a flyer at the local record store? We're just kind of missing out on that hub, and you're talking about that. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think it's important to kind of put a little context behind this. Like back in, say, the early 80s, if you were into quote-unquote punk rock, you were part of a really, really, really small handful of people. And the places you would at a certain point in time in Green Bay, I mean, there weren't really any shows to speak of from, like around 82 or whatever like that when I was in high school, when I was a junior or senior. There really weren't any punk shows until we started putting on shows. Summer I graduated above a bowling alley, North Side Lanes on never mind where it is, on the north side, obviously. But there weren't shows. There wasn't really a thriving community. So you knew that there were people out there here and there that were buying these records. But if you didn't go to school with them or you didn't know them already, you really didn't know them unless you ran into them at the record store and they were holding a record that you thought was interesting, or they were talking to their friend about bands that you knew, and then you'd have to sort of go up and introduce yourselves and start a conversation and exchange phone numbers and things like that. The drummer, my first band, our drummer got killed in a car crash when we were seniors in high school. And the guy who replaced him was a guy that I met at the record store, and I got his phone number just, kind of randomly, that he just was this guy at the record store, and he had a Sex Pistols record or something. I can't remember. But that's how you found bandmates, just by bumping into somebody at the record store or putting up something with a little thumbtack on the bulletin board that 17-year-old boy into punk rock looking for whatever the heck. So I don't know. That was like the one place where you could hope to see, or run into other people of a kindred spirit. Whereas now, you just go online and you can kind of figure out who likes what. And I don't think it'd be that hard to make a connection or two. Well,
I think a lot of that is thanks to guys like you who were, doing it before I was even born. And I gotta say thanks, Norb, for laying down the groundwork and getting shows in Wisconsin and in Green Bay. There's a lot of mythology around Green Bay and the Green Bay punk scene, and that mythology isn't really it doesn't seem like it's really around Green Bay particularly now, but the past of Green Bay, like a bygone era. And you were in like a documentary that is not happening, or it's happening. It's called the Green Blah documentary. Do you know anything about that documentary, and if it's going to come out?
They are working on it slowly but surely. They assure me that they're making good progress. It's Chris and Jim. Chris used to live on the same street I live on now. You're behind me in high school. Jim lives one street over from where I live now, which is, anyway, I run into those guys. I am helping them out with graphics and things like that for the movie, but they assure me that slowly but surely they are making progress on this, and they've been working on it for over 10 years. So this is one finely tuned labor of love, I assure you.
Well, I'm excited for that coming out, because I heard the same thing from Tom when I talked to him, that it's just been a process, and that it's going to come out when it comes out, and I think that's definitely better than them rushing it out. Hopefully it ends up being really great, because they took the time to do it.
Well, it's a lot of middle-aged white guys saying what they used to do that was cool when they were kids. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Well, I think that there are certain people who are interested in that. The people that were actually there talking about the time, and I'm definitely going to watch it when it comes out. So there's that, but I appreciate your honesty on that.
The sad thing is there's so little live footage, and there's so little, there's barely any kind of stuff, because we didn't have video cameras and stuff like that. There's people have photos, but there's a little bit of footage. It would have been a lot cooler if there would have been more live footage, I think, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah. What was it like? I'm sorry to ask you all these things, like, what was it like then? What was it like then? But I am curious, what was it like when you had to, like, was it hard to put out a record back in the day? Like, did you have to have like a lot of money to do it, or were there like workarounds that guys had to be able to make it happen still? Or
you didn't need any more record putting out money then than you did now. You just had to.
Well, the thing is now you can buy a home recording studio and pretty much record at home. And I think it used to be harder to do that. I mean, you get like your Tascam tape thing, and I suppose you could still do it yourself, but it just seems like now, I mean, even people like, there's kids growing up who they have a computer that they got like for Christmas or whatever, and it's got GarageBand on it, and they could record if they wanted to. Like it is a lot more accessible than it used to be. And but did you, when you recorded your albums, did you work with a producer with a lot of your older albums, or did you guys have like a setup like in a garage or something like that where you recorded your albums? I mean, they sound great. How did you guys record with like Norb and the Onions? And I'm sorry, I keep on not remembering the other name of the band you're in, even though I was listening to them all day yesterday.
The Smart Shoppers?
The Smart Shoppers, that's your newest band.
That's correct. We didn't record yet. Well, they recorded a 7-inch, but I wasn't in the band yet.
Okay, so the Smart Shoppers is your newest band. How did that band come about?
That band is my next door neighbor Joe and some guys he knew since he was young, Aaron and Josh, and they got together and played music, and they somehow wound up booking a gig, and they didn't have a bass player. And Joe said, we have booked a gig and we don't have a bass player. And I said, I would like to be your bass player. And that's how that wound up.
Well, that's good. How do you like being in that band?
I like it. I like being a bass player.
Yeah, it's fun to play the bass, isn't it?
It's the punk rock vocalist retirement plan.
But I guess I forgot back to the other question before. How in your numerous bands throughout the years, how do you normally record your albums? I'm just curious who you work with and how you get it done.
That process sort of mutated over the years. My first band, Suburban Mutilation, we recorded our first album only album in January 1984. We found an ad for a guy that had a recording studio in his basement. It was 8-track reel-to-reel tape, dynamic sound in Neenah, Wisconsin. So we went down there, and it was like 6 hours for $80 or whatever. And we recorded our album for $86, I think. And you're really at the mercy of whoever it's pretty rare to have a studio somewhere, and you were at the mercy of this guy that just had recording equipment at his house, and he had absolutely no idea really about too much things other than I push the tape here and it records, and I do this and I do that, and they obviously didn't understand punk rock whatsoever at that point in time. So you were really at the mercy of unsympathetic type engineer type people, the guy that owned the studio. My second band, Depo-Provera, we recorded 1 7-inch. We went to Breezeway Studios in Waukesha or somewhere like that, and that was kind of expensive, cost a lot of money. It didn't really sound all that great. Then Boris the Sprinkler, who was my band in the 90s, our bass player, who first wasn't our bass player, then was our bass player, then was our bass player. He happened to have a studio in his basement. We recorded there, and I thought that sounded really good. And Reverend Norb the Onions, we recorded that. Brad recorded that, our guitar player. We recorded that in our drummer's parents' barn.
Cool. Yeah, Brad seems like he's a really cool guy. I've never met Brad, but I'm friends with him on Facebook, and he seems like he's a really creative, cool person.
He is a unique and energetic individual.
Yeah, and he's got a lot. He's constantly like recording stuff, little ditties, and putting stuff together for fun, and it's cool. It's cool to follow him on Facebook. He's somebody that I should probably interview eventually. It seems like it'd be fun to interview him.
Good call.
Yeah, and the recordings that he's done with you guys sound good too, and I think that's good that the evolution of that, being able to work with people that are like actually in your band recording. Was that a lot more comfortable once you got to that point where you like you had guys in the band that are like, hey, I got some recording equipment, we can do it? It was probably a lot more fun to record than I imagine.
Yeah, it was a lot less weird. Oh, I should point out that Depo-Provera we recorded a demo in about 1987 in Smart Studios before Smart Studios in Madison got all popular. And I'm going off track here, but I'm trying to get everybody. And the Boris the Sprinkler album, the reunion album that came out last year, we recorded that with Amos Pitch at Crutch of Memory Studios in Appleton, and that was fun too. But I mean, it's obviously
really, you recorded Vespid of Venus at Crutch of Memory?
Yes.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
How about that?
Yeah, I think that they're doing good work at Crutch of Memory. That's cool that you chose to work with them. Yeah, I was looking up your discography with Boris the Sprinkler, and you guys have like over 20 albums. Is that true, right?
That would not be true. I mean,
releases maybe?
We have I think we have 27 inches. Close.
Yeah. You had a lot of releases, and then I was looking on your Discogs. It also said like one of your albums had 20 separate versions or something. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
I mean, that wouldn't be an album. That would be like the Drugs and Masturbation 45. There's a big long story on that one, but
that's the one.
There were a lot of versions. There were a lot of versions. There's versions with hidden tracks on the B-side and all kinds.
What is the story behind that?
Well, that was put out by Mutant Pop Records. That was this guy named Tim. He lived in Oregon, Corvallis. I don't know how you say it. Corvallis, Oregon, home of Oregon State. And he released it in 6 colors of vinyl, I believe. And 5 of the colors were normal, but one of the colors, the clear color, had a different B-side. We put some other songs on the B-side just to be weird, to be wacky. Well, then that became collectible, and people started buying all those colors. So then he repressed it in, I think, black vinyl. Then he repressed it in a couple other colors of vinyl. Then he licensed it to a record label in Finland, and they put it out in 3 different colors of vinyl, blue, pink, and green. And the green B-side secretly had 2 unreleased songs by the Scottish band the Revillos on the back. Or was it the Rezillos? Rezillos, I can't remember. Anyway, so unbeknownst to them, we had this half bootleg record with the Rezillos on the B-side. Then he released some more. Then I think I cut like a different monologue for it, so we made like a different version, and we just kept updating it and making it weirder and weirder and doing weird things to it, and eventually it got out of control, and that's how you wind up with 20 different versions of a 45.
That's cool. That was a cool story. I'm glad that I asked that question. You made a lot of guest appearances on albums too that I sometimes randomly stumble upon, and one of them was the Riverdale's album, one of their first songs. What was it like working on that album and doing that? You were like kind of like a news guy in the middle of one of those songs. What?
Yes,
yeah, fun tonight.
Gonna have fun. Fall in and dig the gig, Jethro. This is your 99% politically correct. Yeah, that was weird because like we toured with the Riverdales and stuff, and Ben's like, okay, I got this song, and I just had this big break. And there's nothing in the break. I need, what, can you do like a radio DJ spiel over it? So like, yeah, sure. So I figured out like this radio DJ spiel to go over this big long break where nothing changed. The music just kept playing for like a minute. And I had to go down to Sonic Iguana Studios in Lafayette, Indiana, and record with Mass Giorgini. And when the Riverdales were doing their first album, and I had to wait for Dan Vapid to get done singing his harmony vocals on In Your Dreams. And I went in there and I blah, blah, blah. I ranted and raved and gesticulated and stuff. And eventually I got it where I was happy. And then, I don't know, I went over to Mass Giorgini's house and we ate pizza together, got in a fight about whether the Beatles sucked or not. Me and Mass and Dan Vapid said the Beatles were good. No, me, Mass, and Dan Panic said the Beatles were good. Ben and Dan Vapid said the Beatles sucked. And that was that. And then they shot a video for it later, and I went down and I was in the video, but it was directed by this guy, Bruce LaBruce, who was apparently, I wasn't familiar with him at the time, but he was apparently this Toronto gay filmmaker. He was like big in apparently that's a thing. Anyway, he was this, I don't know, apparently there's like a Toronto gay film scene or something. I don't know, but anyway, he was like the head guy of that. I'd never heard of him, but he directed this video, and there was like they rented out space in some building in Chicago, and they were, I don't know, building sets and had a big crew, and he's running around with his camera, and it was all kind of official, and I had no idea who Bruce LaBruce was. I thought he was just going to be some kid with the Andy Warhol haircut and a little camcorder. Anyway, I was in a suit, and I did my fall in and dig the gig, Jethro, blah, 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 blah thing, and they made a video, and I guess they sent it to MTV, and MTV said they wouldn't run it because it was, and these aren't my words. These are somebody's words. Well, maybe they are my. I don't know. It's apparently just too gay for them because I don't know. They're boys bouncing in the bed together, and I don't know. I guess when you have somebody named Bruce LaBruce direct your video, that's what happens. But for some reason, there was this big sort of like gay aspect to it, and somebody didn't like it, and I don't know. So it never got shown anywhere. But I am in the video that I haven't seen except once at Dan Vapid's house.
I wonder if that's on YouTube.
I've never seen it on YouTube. I've never seen it anywhere but at Dan Vapid's house.
That's an interesting story. Fuck MTV for being fucking homophobic.
I tell ya.
They kind of suck anyway.
I mean, when they first came out, it was sort of an interesting thing because you would put it on and, you know, maybe you'd be 18 and sitting around with your buddies drinking beer, trying to think of something to do. And music videos would play and you'd watch them and you'd laugh at them or, oh, this is kind of cool or that girl's hot or this is lame or whatever. But you'd spend the whole weekend just sort of sitting around drinking beer and watching MTV because you didn't have anything better to do. And then years after that, it wasn't even like that. It was just a bunch of dumb shows of people on a beach or something. People living in an apartment together. Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, yeah, I don't understand it either. MTV sure has gone downhill. That's for sure. I don't even know why they call it music television really anymore. It's just like reality TV land. So you collect comics and you're talking about how you collected a lot of Marvel comics. Where's your stance? And I guess some people might be neutral on this, but are you more of a DC or a Marvel guy?
I was historically always more of a Marvel guy throughout my life. I always really loved Justice League. I have a good Justice League collection. I have like from their first appearance and Brave and the Bold 28 from I think it's December 1958 / January 1959 or is it 59-60? Well, whatever. I've got that and I got like the first 100 issues and stuff. But I think right around the 90s ish. There's really ceased to be any kind of major distinction between the two companies. Like throughout my younger life, Marvel was always hipper and funnier and kind of edgier or whatever, and DC was kind of squarer and whatnot. And then I don't really think there's that much of a difference anymore. The creators are passing freely between the two imprints, and I think I don't really read all that much new stuff anymore. But I think DC currently has the edge on stuff I read, which is barely anything. But they have the Grant Morrison Green Lantern, and I like that.
What do you think of all the new movies that are coming out, like the new DC and Marvel movies? Is that kind of cool to see all these comics and stuff, cartoons and stuff that you're into your whole life turn into like live action movies?
It is kind of cool. It's really weird because at one point in time, knowing stuff about superheroes that's kind of like punk rock. It was like this weird little bitty inbred clique where it was a secret society. Ooh, I know what vibranium is. I know where Wakanda is. I know these secret terms and stuff. And now it's this mainstream Hollywood blockbuster stuff, and everybody's sitting in the movie theater eating popcorn. Oh yeah, Wakanda. Oh yeah, that's where Black Panther lives. Whatever. And suddenly this weird arcane insider knowledge is now this sort of somewhat bland, mass-produced consumer product. So
It's
cool.
almost like society has realized that geeks were actually cool all along.
Excellent point.
Yeah. So I see you're wearing a Star Trek hat. What's up with the hat?
All right, it's my Star Trek fez.
It's a fez hat. Oh.
It's a fez. Yes, it's a fez.
That's pretty cool. Is that associated with Spock? It just makes me think of Spock for some reason.
Well, this is, Spock does wear the blue of the
Right.
engineering department, and so does McCoy. I don't know. I was at a comic book convention and I saw a Star Trek fez. I bought it. It's like freaking leather. It's like putting your head in a bucket. But if you only need to buy one Star Trek fez in your life, I guess it's going to be this one.
Yeah, I would totally rock that fez hat. Except my head is really big and like hats don't fit on my head. But if it fit on my head, I would wear it.
You could perch it on your head like an organ grinder's monkey.
Yeah, that would work. Just have it kind of floating on the top of my head. My hair is really puffy too, so it could just kind of float there.
You may need a hat pin.
Yeah, that probably would be true. Have you been watching like the new Star Trek? Are you like a strictly original series guy, or have you been digging into the new Star Trek as well?
I mean, I am not strictly an original series guy, but I'm pretty close to an original series guy. I watched when The Next Generation first came out. I watched the first season pretty religiously. Second season, I kind of started drifting off. Then I kind of lost interest after that. I didn't really pay attention to any of the other TV shows. I watched the movies from time to time, but even when those other movies came out, I saw the first one. It was kind of lame. I don't think I saw any of the other ones. It just didn't interest me, and I didn't have money to go to movies in the 80s anyway, so it didn't really matter. But I for the most part, I'm mostly into the original series. I mean, I accept the fact that the new stuff might be cool, but I have not had the opportunity or the interest to delve into it.
It's definitely different. You might be disappointed. Some people are finding themselves disappointed. I'm a little bit on both sides. It's literally like, especially the new movies. If the very new movies, they're like all Hollywood actiony. It's like the newest movies with Kirk and Spock and stuff. Like, it's like they're chasing a villain. All three of the new movies, and that's the whole thing. And it just doesn't feel like Star Trek. And it kind of sucks.
Yeah, I have seen the three new movies. I thought it was a little off-putting when they were having a space battle scene with the Beastie Boys in the background. That just, I don't know. There was a little bit of a clash. I think Star Trek is one of those things that doesn't and isn't going to adapt itself well to the big screen, because I think Star Trek, at least from the original series standpoint, it was more like short stories. It was more like something you start and 60 minutes later you get to an end. It wasn't like story arc novel.
And they're moving away from that, like, because I'm huge into like the whole all Star Trek. I'm into it. And Picard came out, which is like all about Picard, and the whole thing is one story. It's like 12 episodes long, and it's one story.
Oh yeah, I saw the first episode of that at Tom's house. It was like some sort of like mystery kind of thing.
Yeah, and then the same thing with Discovery. It's just like really long stories. It's kind of cool because they got Spock in there, and Pike. You get Pike. which is like he's in the pilot episode of the original series, and you get to learn about his backstory a little bit, which is kind of cool. And he makes a really great captain. But yeah, it's just weird how they're they have Pike right there. Yeah, man, it would be cool to. It'd be cool. They're about to come out with a new season. I haven't watched any of it. It'd be cool if they moved back to the episode formula. I really think that would be neat to see in the modern age, and I think that would capture a lot of the attention that they're losing in people. A lot of people aren't into it, and if they just did the short episodes, well, they're like an hour long, but I just think I missed that too about Star Trek, is when it was just like an episode and you got the whole thing, and it made it just worked that way because you don't have to get all the details of the universe that and like plot holes and stuff like that because you're just containing it so much. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I think I view like the original series as a collection of 79 or 80, depending on how you count the pilot. Is like short stories, whereas something else is like a novel. I think the longer storyline is fine for, say, Battlestar Galactica or Star Wars, but for Star Trek, I like things compact. And the one thing that I really didn't like, since I'm on my soapbox about the Next Generation, was they had that freaking kid on the show. And I thought like one of the more celebrated things where they came out with the original series was there wasn't a little kid on it. They didn't like kiddy it up for TV. So when I saw that Wesley Crusher, was that the
Wesley
kid?
Crusher.
It's like that was sort of like a betrayal to me because it's like, okay, if I wanted, Lost in Space was the show I used to watch when I was a little kid before I discovered Star Trek. If I wanted Lost in Space with the old little Will Robinson and his robot, palling around with the adults, I would watch Lost in Space. I don't want a little kid on my Star Trek.
Yeah, it was off-putting to a lot of people. It's become like a joke in the Star Trek community. Shut the fuck up, Wesley. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. Shut the fuck up, Wesley. Have you ever heard that?
No, but I might have told Wesley Willis that once or twice. Probably not. He was much larger than me. Anyway, I'll make note of that.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Wesley Willis. I love Wesley Willis. How did you meet Wesley Willis? Fucking explain that one to us.
Wesley Willis was living in Chicago with this guy Dale. They were living in this loft, and Wesley and Dale were roommates in this big loft, and there were a couple other people living there. And Dale was the guitar player. He was in a band with Ron, who was the original Boris the Sprinkler drummer. They were called Temple of Dale. So then when Temple of Dale kind of fizzled or whatever, and Ron and when we started Boris, we actually went down and we recorded with Dale, now that I think of it. Anyway, since they were friends, so Wesley would come up, he'd visit, he'd hang out in Green Bay, or we'd go down to Chicago, we'd hang out with Wesley. So that's how we got to know each other. So Wesley was roommates with Dale. Dale was in a band with Ron, and Ron was in a band with me. So
you just like hung out with Wesley Willis?
We would hang out with Wesley Willis. We'd have him in the van. He'd sleep over. He'd come over and stay over at your house for a week. He'd call you up. Hey, Reverend Norb, I'm going to come up to Green Bay for 24 days. He'd say, Wesley, 24 days seems like a long time. And he'd say, I'm going to come up to Green Bay for 7 days. He's like, all right, Wesley, that sounds good. And he would come up to Green Bay, go down to the mall and draw people or whatever the heck.
That's pretty cool.
He was a cool guy. He was certainly, he was, to say the least, a very unique individual and will certainly be missed.
Did you hear how the Chicago Art Museum featured some of his art? I think like a couple of years ago, maybe less than that, maybe a little more.
I did not.
Yeah, he did a lot of portraits of Chicago, like city streets and subways and stuff like that, and really good stuff. And yeah, it got in the Chicago Art Museum. It's too bad that he didn't get to see that within his lifetime, but that's a pretty cool accomplishment on his part.
On the first Boris van, Wesley actually drew a landscape of some sort. But one of my greatest regrets, of my various 10 million billion zillion regrets, is Wesley was staying over at my house once, and it was like the middle of winter. It was super duper cold, and he wanted me to buy one of his drawings for him. If you knew Wesley, he always had his drawings. He's always trying to sell you one of his drawings for $20. I said, I'm not interested in one of your drawings that you drew of other stuff. However, I will give you $20 to go draw the building that I live in, to draw my house, because that would be cool to have. But I don't want you to do it now because it's like 30 below zero, and Wesley will go out and he'll sit on the curb and it'll be 30 below zero. And I worried for his safety. So I was like, I'll give you the $20 now, just draw my house later, when the weather warms up. And I never got around to telling him that he needed to draw my house. So I don't have the Wesley drawing of my house. And I'm out the $20. Oh, well.
That sucks. Do you have any of his art?
I don't. That was the only one I was going to have, and then I never got around to doing it.
That's a bummer.
No, I don't really care about the $20.
Yeah, we got that.
All right, just
You didn't have to-
making sure
Yeah.
that my quotes are not out of context.
Got you there. Didn't he play at the Concert Cafe in Green Bay, Wesley?
I can't remember. He played in our kitchen once at the old Boris pad.
Oh, he did house shows at the Boris pad?
It was like him and Scooby Don't, and I can't remember who else played, but I know Wesley Willis played there. He was supposed to play at the Concert Cafe, and I know one time he didn't show up, so I imitated Wesley Willis with a keyboard, which was dumb. He must have. I mean, he played all over the place.
Yeah.
He played he played with his band, the Wesley Willis Fiasco, at this venue on University Avenue called the Option 2, that with the Digits. That was like 1992. That was a long time ago.
Okay, that's pretty cool that you knew Wesley, and that there's a lot of cool stuff to learn about, and thanks for sharing that with us. Out of all the bands that you played in over the years, you put out a lot of records. And this might be a hard question for you because you don't want to like make one band feel a certain way or whatever, but what are some of the records that you're the most proud of that you put out over the years? Maybe you might want to say all of them, but are there any of them where you're like put them out and you're like, this is a fucking kick-ass record, I'm proud of this?
I really like the fourth Boris the Sprinkler album, Suck. And I know the material gets kind of weak in the middle of side 2, and I put all the good material first, but that's the one record where I listen to that and I regret the least things. Like, I don't go, oh, I would have done that differently, or oh, I should have done that differently. That record is just about as darn good as it can be. That is one of the only records I've been on where I'm like, yeah, this lived up to its potential. I don't wish I would have recorded it differently. I don't wish I would have sung it differently. I don't wish we would have played it differently. I'm like, yeah, this right here is good.
I was listening to Suck yesterday, and it is good. It's a good album. I really liked Boris the Sprinkler is Gay too. There's some good songs on that.
That one I don't like. That one is bad. That one was.
Well,
that one was.
I liked it.
Well, the customer is always right.
But go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
That was sort of. Boris were kind of deteriorating at that point in time, and we weren't really doing anything, and I kind of rushed us into making another album for Go-Kart because I wanted to get more money from them, and I wanted us to make an album, and we didn't really have the songs. We just had like partial ideas for songs, that some of them were good and some of them weren't good, and thought we'd sort of flesh them out in the studio. And I think some of the songs are really good, a few of them. Most of them I think are probably disposable. That's my fault because I hurried us into the studio. Oh yeah, plus the guy at the studio wound up double booking the studio for the week we wanted, so we said we had to record the week earlier, so we had even less time to get our little half-assed ideas together. And due to the weird scheduling thing, we at no point in time did all 4 members of Boris appear in the studio at the same time. Me and Paul number 1, the guitar player, we went in and we recorded some stuff to click track. Then we tried to have the drummer play the quick click track when we weren't there. And the whole album was sort of assembled by remote control. And I think you kind of get a shoddy work product that way. Although in ways, I kind of like how it's played to click track because it's interesting because punk rock is usually a little bit more wacky and wild and not so concerned with being precise, and that's kind of precise in places. And the only song that isn't played to click track is Motherfucker Are You Ready to Rock, which is a dumb song. But anyway, there are a few songs on there that I really like, but most of them I do not.
Yeah, well, I put it on, I was just listening to your stuff and passing, hanging out, doing stuff, and I thought it had some good songs on it, and it's interesting to hear. It's interesting to hear your perspective on your work and what you like and what you don't like. And I guess something to maybe that might feel good for you is the fact that a lot of your work that you probably don't even like, other people do. So I guess that's always good when the work that you think sucks or whatever, other people actually enjoy it. So,
I don't know if I like that or not. Whatever, I'll take it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I hate the cover art, and I hate the name, and I hate just about everything about that record.
Well, so you said with the newest band that you're in, the Smart Shoppers, you're not on any recorded material by them yet? You're only doing live stuff?
We only recorded the 1 7-inch, and that was before they even played a show.
So you've got one 7-inch and that's it. And can you find that online, like even for physical purchase or?
I don't think you can. I don't think we have any copies left for sale, but I mean, you can. I'm sure you can find it online. However, you do that type of thing, because I already have 7-inch. I'm not up looking for it, but Bandcamp or whatever the hell. I think it's on.
Okay, cool. I'll have to check that out. I didn't know that you recorded an album with Amos, and I want to hear how it sounds. That's pretty cool.
It sounds. It's Amos-licious.
Yeah, it's Amos-licious. Yeah, he's got a good sound going on coming out of that studio. I wouldn't mind recording
he's a mad
album
scientist type.
Yeah, he really is, and I've seen him evolve over the years with his setup, and I remember he used to have you ever been to the BFG?
I don't think so.
Well, he had like a punk house that he lived in, the BFG, and I just remember going upstairs one time, and he had his door cracked open a little bit, and he just had this fucking ridiculous console that took up this entire desk just sitting there, and I went in there and talked to him, and now it's been like a decade since then, and he's got even more of a setup and an even better spot to record, and it's just been cool to see that evolve over the years, and now he's got like a creative vision with Crutch of Memory, and it's kicked off, and it's pretty cool to see. And it's cool to see that you, a Green Bay punk rock veteran, did some work with an Appleton punk rock veteran and put out an album out of Crutch of Memory. I'm probably going to listen to that today and enjoy it thoroughly. I see
that you do. I see that you do.
So I don't know. We're getting close to the end here. Is there anything that I can play on here for like the beginning of the interview before you come on, or the end, because this is pre-recorded? Is there anything that I could play that doesn't have like copyright on it, so people could check you out, or just anything that people can check out on their own that you'd recommend? Like, I don't know. I guess we talked about all the bands that you were in. What could you really say? That's kind of a stupid question. Check out all the bands that Norb that we talked about that Norb is in. They're all great. Even the albums that he says suck are good. So, but yeah. I got a question for you. What was it like to be on Jenny Jones?
It was pretty weird, and the weirdest thing about it, and it was obviously kind of a weird experience. You're sitting in a Chicago hotel, and they put you in a limo, and they take you to NBC studios, and so on and so forth. The weirdest thing was, I got on that stage, and there were no monitors. There's no monitors, so Jenny Jones is blah 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 blah, and you got you have like the PA that's blowing into the crowd, but I don't know how they don't understand this. You're at NBC studios in Chicago, and there are no freaking monitors, so I can't hear what she's saying, and I'm trying not to look like a complete idiot because I'm on national television, and there's this chick up there, blah, 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 and I can sort of hear echoes, and I can kind of hear her voice, and I'm trying to lip read and stuff, and it's like, how the hell can you have such bad monitoring systems? You got all these guests, you're asking them questions, and nobody can hear a goddamn thing. It was just the weirdest thing that there weren't any monitors on that stage.
Yeah, it's weird. I've noticed this with people that have been on TV, and I did it. I played bass in the band that was on TV once, and they just have their shit together so much less than you think they would. Like, you think these people are professional and they got it together, and you think it's going to be so. That's what you expect when you go there, and it's like, these people have no idea what the fuck they're doing. They just make it look like they do. Like,
yeah, it's sort of amazing, but yeah, whatever. It was a good time.
Yeah, I just thought that was like a kind of a weird position that they put you in. And I heard it was funny too. I heard there was like, I interviewed Tom, and Tom talked about this a little bit. And he said that there was like a funk band that you met that was like trying to get you to join their band.
I was in a limo with, what the hell were they called? The Aphrodisiacs, Afrodisiacs, and they played, I don't know, disco-y funk, and they had goofy wigs. I wound up getting they put me in the same limo with them on the way back from the studio to the hotel, and they were like, "Man, how much you making in that band a year?" We'll double it. I don't know. So they were trying to get me in the band. It was kind of weird.
Didn't they? And what did they want you to do? Like, be the front man of their band? Like,
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they were entirely serious, but they were,
Sounds to me like they're just trying to flex like they're better than you, and they're just being dicks in a coy way. But I don't know.
It's hard to say. I don't really know the etiquette of riding in a limousine with a funk band, so I don't know what's normal.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like you're not supposed to know what's normal, Norb, and that's why you're Reverend Norb, is because fuck normal things anyway.
Huzzah!
So, hey, tell us about your punk zine. You had a punk zine that was pretty renowned. And I don't know how long it's been since you put out an issue, but can you just I can't think of the name off the top of my head. Can you jog my
I think
memory
the
for
name
me?
was 16.
16, yeah. Tell us about that a little bit.
I started putting it out when I was a junior in high school. The first issue came out on Lincoln's birthday, 1982. Just a little zine, and I shrunk down the type really tiny, which actually happened on accident. I didn't think the type was going to go. This was before. Okay, nowadays, if you want to print some type that's really small, you go to your computer and you say, okay, I want 5-point times New Roman or whatever. Before that, all you had was a typewriter, right? So you hit keys and it would make your letters be, 12-point typewriter looking stuff. And if you wanted them to get smaller, this was before you had Xerox machines that could shrink stuff down for you even. You had to take it to a print shop and have them shoot it on this big vertical camera and do all the, develop it in a dark room and all this funky crap. So I said, I brought them all my sheets of typing for them to shrink down because, a typewriter types at only 12 point because that's the way it works. And I said, okay, shrink it down like 25%. And I'm thinking that that's going to reduce the size, so my type is 25% of what size it was. But actually, it was like it reduced to 25% of the height and 25% of the width. So my type was actually, 1/16 of the original size, which was tiny. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I can squish more stuff in a smaller space. So I became renowned for having this really small type, and it was all thrown around and jumbled with collages and weird pictures and goofy word balloons coming out of people's mouths and stuff. And I put that out for a number of years, and it was a thing. It was a thing.
When did he stop putting it out?
I think the last issue I put out was probably 1993 or 1994, and there was probably a 5-year gap between that and the last one. So it's been a while. I might be due.
How did you distribute it?
You just distribute it through the mail.
So you had like people sign up on a mailing list, and
I mean, fanzines back in the day, there were a lot more zines, so you'd send your zines to the other zines, and they would usually publish a list of zines in the back of their zine and would have your address, and people would write to you and send you 24 cents plus 20 cents postage or whatever it was, and you would mail them a copy.
That's pretty cool.
But you could get rid of 1,000 zines that way, or 2,000.
How many did you get rid of?
I don't know. I think the last issue is probably close to 2,000, but I know my first issue was 100, and then it kind of went up from there.
So what kind of content did you have in 16?
I don't know. I just rant, rave, review live shows, interview bands, do record reviews, that kind of crap.
Cool. Sounds cool. There's probably no real documentation of that you can find anymore other than physical copies, I'm guessing.
I have absolutely no idea because I have not cared to look.
Do you have any copies of 16 still?
I mean, I have my own personal copies.
Gotcha. No, that's what I meant. It'd be
I might
interesting.
Have a bag of ones that came back rejected by the mail or whatever somewhere. I don't know where those are.
It would be cool to see that get archived online in some way so people could look at it. If it isn't already, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody did it.
I don't think it's that terribly necessary to read everything that you wrote when you were 16 years old, frankly. Some of that stuff can just sort of flash into existence and flash back out of existence.
Well, it's from a historical standpoint, I think a lot of people would be interested in it. A lot of people are interested in weird niche things that they weren't a part of that happened 20 years ago. It's interesting for certain people to dive into that kind of thing.
I suppose it would be interesting from an archaeological standpoint, but from, reading the half-assed ravings of a horny teenager, I don't know that that's eternally evergreen fresh material.
Yeah, well, it's still cool that you did it, and people are still talking about it. That's one thing, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. You've been a real good guest, and thanks for coming on the show and taking some time to chat it up a little bit with us here at Gated Vibes. I think you're like our 15th guest or something. I don't know. We've been doing this for like a month and a half. I don't know.
Wow, I'm Bart Starr's jersey number.
You're Bart Starr's jersey number. Are you, being from Green Bay, are you a Packer fan?
I'm afraid so.
You are? See, I was talking to Tom. I keep bringing him up again. To people who don't know, Tom Smith is a guy who is also from Green Bay, friends with Norb, book shows there and stuff. Anyway, I was talking to him, and what What were we just talking about? I hate my memory. Why did I bring up
Probably
Tom?
the Chicago Bears that you're going to get to.
Yeah. He's a Bears fan. Yeah, I couldn't believe that. He always talks about Lambeau Field, and he talks with like high respect to the Packers and stuff like that. Like he doesn't trash talk the Packers. And then I found out he was a Chicago Bears fan. And I think that's cool, though. I think that's cool that he has so much respect for a team that is an enemy team. I think it'd be cool if more people were like that.
Tom is a football guy. Tom is the most football guy I know in my life.
I remember when I met Tom, actually, it was at the BFG, actually, and he was there for a show, and he was upstairs hanging out. I just remember him talking about being at Lambeau Field at some press conference and like asking a Packer like questions or something like that. I should have asked Tom about that because I didn't really know him very well, but he was talking about how he actually was at a press conference with like two other punks, and he was talking about how funny it was the way they were dressed and stuff like that, and they got to actually ask it. It was like Donald Driver or something like that. They got to ask him some questions. But yeah, so that's another reason I'm like, well, this guy's obviously a Packer fan if he's freaking at Lambeau Field asking Packer players questions. Well, we're pretty close to the end of the interview. I don't know what else to say. I feel like sometimes I'm a little bit awkward, and I apologize for that. But I think overall I did an okay job.
I think you were tremendous.
Yeah.
Best interview all day.
Best interview all day. Well, that's good to know. I'm glad that you had a good time, and yeah, I guess I can let you go now. Thanks for being with us, and just take it easy, hang in there, and keep your vibes gated.
My vibes shall ever be gated thanks to your sage advice.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Farewell. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
All right.
Hang up.